everyone, how are you? This is Bethany Gagne, founder of Numinous, the organization that was running the Resonant Peace Project for a while. For those of you who aren't familiar, I'm also a biofeedback specialist, meditation researcher, and written a couple books on consciousness, become a consciousness athlete, and dealing with difficult people for spiritual people. And all of that work has to do with consciousness. And I have been crazy passionate about learning about consciousness for the last 35 years. And the reason for that is because when I was 21, before I had ever heard the word Kundalini, before I had ever heard the word Chi, before I had ever cracked open a spiritual book, I started to have a very rude Kundalini awakening occur in my body. So I was having Chi just run rampant in my body, not understanding it, couldn't grasp it, didn't know what was going on. I tried to describe it to doctors and they just think I had 6 eyes. And so it just was a big challenge. But as time went on, books came my way, people came my way, and eventually I overcame my resistance towards spirituality because at the time I really had no use for spirituality. I was going on to bigger and better things. I wanted to go be a music educator and things like that. But finally, when I started to kind of get with the program as far as what was really happening in my life, I started to realize that there was this much bigger mystery that I was living. And I needed to understand this mystery if I was going to cohabitate with it well. And so throughout the last 35 years, I've studied everything I could possibly consider regarding consciousness to help me understand what is this mystery that we're all living. And so to that end, what I often did was I would study near-death research, so people who have had a near-death experience. So understand that about 5% of the world's population have had near-death experiences. They've been clinically dead and then they come back. And because of that, there's about, I think it's 17 million Americans have died and come back. And so because there's just so many people that have had this experience, there's actually one realm of research. And I talked about this last week, and I know I'm reviewing some of that, but I'm reviewing it because I want to take it a little further this week, okay? And so what's happened is there's been so many people who have become clinically dead that when they come back, there's a whole body of research that starts to investigate. Are these people hallucinating? Are they having a legitimate bona fide experience? Are they on the other side of the veil or not, right? And one of the absolute indicators that yes, you literally crossed the divide, you were on the other side, is when you come back, did your life radically change? Did it radically change, right? Because what happens is we go into a near-death experience and we expand so much that when we come back, it's kind of like your foot has gotten bigger, and you're trying to put your bigger foot into your old shoes, right? Like the bigness of who you remembered that you are doesn't quite fit in your life. And I talked about last week, sadly, this often occurs, results in like 85% of the people who come back from a near-death experience get divorced. Now, it's not because they suddenly don't appreciate their spouse so much as maybe it's also that the people around the person with a near-death experience don't get that person either. Because that person has had such a transformative experience, they come back and the people around them don't relate. Their social contracts with that person don't work, right? And so understand that when people come back, very often they get new jobs, they become more altruistic. If they had any deception in their lives, often they can't live with it anymore. They have to live in complete truth. And so another thing that happens is, like, I remember Danny Brinkley was a famous person for this. He was a bad dude. He was a criminal mind, so to speak. And when he came back, he realized that being on the other side, the one thing that's different about being on this side compared to the other side is that on this side we can touch and we can feel. And so it was the one thing that he realized that doesn't happen over there. So he came back and he started volunteering at senior centers and help kind of just helping people feel touch, like feel palpable, like appreciate the kinestheticness of being in this realm. So anyway, so these huge transformative things happen. And what I am going to suggest to you is the fact that the idea that you don't have to die to have these experiences happen to you. You don't have to go to the other side and become clinically dead for you to touch consciousness in such a way that it will so radically transform you. In fact, now there's a new phrase called a mystical near-death experience, right? It's this idea that we can journey in our own consciousness to live on both sides of the veil. And when we live on both sides of the veil, we have access to so much more chi, life force, energy. It makes us highly resilient. In fact, I'm going to pause right now, and I want you to kind of take a moment and think of the snapshot of where your energy was when you first started listening to this, and hopefully you're still with me. And I want to have you start noticing, because as I'm going to talk about near-death experiences, as I'm going to talk about consciousness, your consciousness is going to track with me, okay? And you may notice that your sense of awareness may expand or shift or change as we talk about this. Because understand that just connecting with this energy, or just even thinking or contemplating about it, actually engages us with it. I've often even seen this with like quantum physicists or astrophysicists. When they contemplate the creative energy of the quantum field, like you can see their eyes go glassy, you can just see them like basically space out literally as they're talking about space, right? And so with this idea that when we just even contemplate consciousness, we touch it. And I remember years ago, I was interviewing Scott Taylor. He's one of the near-death researchers on a phenomenon known as the shared death experience. And I asked him, I said, isn't this true? I said, because I could tell. Because when, especially like I remember with my mom, when my mom was passing, I was in this medical hospice facility with her every day. And I would come home knowing it was a momentous time in my life. I was in a gateway of time. I wanted to be really mindful that I was doing everything I should do to close this chapter of our lives together. And I would come home and I'd sit in the backyard and I would watch near-death, people who have had near-death experiences come back and tell their stories. Now, not all of them are great. Some of them are kind of boring or kind of odd, but you know a good one when you see it, feel it, because when you start to watch or can talk or consider near-death experiences, you're actually touching, you're moving the veil and helping yourself connect to that aspect of yourself. Now, the reason why that's so important is because that is the portion that so many people are not working with in their lives. And so they try to make a big change and they're not accessing this large aspect of themselves. It's like leaving a whole bunch of money on the table. You're trying to walk around in your little cognitive mind, your little ego mind, trying to like figure it all out, blah, blah, blah. When there's this, like you are connected to this infinite energy. You're riding on the back of a giant and you're trying to do it with your small little myopic mind. Now, so what I'm gonna encourage you this week is, last week I asked you to consider how would your life be different if you held the identity that you are eternal, okay? That you're gonna go on after you take your last breath. So how does that shape what you do today, okay? How does that shape how you spend today? So the idea is that what I'm wanting you to do is for you to start contemplating these kind of spaces, because just contemplating them touches the space. And so again, when I said to Scott Taylor in that researcher, I said, isn't it true that when we talk about near-death experiences, we're touching that level of consciousness? And he absolutely verified and agreed it with me. Now you may be saying, well, I don't really feel anything, so what, you know? Here's the deal. That level of consciousness, that if you were to go into a near-death experience, it's actually part of you now. The reason why you're not aware of it, the reason why you're not living the dream, so to speak, literally, is the idea that we were all born with this nervous system that has completely crippled us, okay? This 5-sensory nervous system literally only lets in, and this is research-based, get this, our nervous system, researchers say, only allows in 0.00001% of the information that's around us. So let's just apply that. Say, for instance, our hearing is from 0 to 20 hertz, right? But dogs can hear at 60 hertz, so they can hear things that we can't, right? So our nervous system only lets in, get this, 0.00001% of the information that's around us. So what that really tells us is we know close to 0% of what's around us than even 1%. than what's around us. So in this room right now, there's all sorts of things going on in the etheric, okay? We're just not familiar with them. Our nervous system is not designed to allow it in. And so we're walking around thinking that we know so much, so full of ourselves, so thinking that we know about who we are and where we came from and what our lives are about, and honestly, we don't know shit. We don't know much at all, really. In fact, the Course in Miracles nails this on the very first day of the workshop in the Course in Miracles, or the workbook for the Course in Miracles. The very first day, it has you look around and go, I don't know what anything is for. I don't know. I don't know what this coffee cup is for. I don't know what this remote is for. I don't know, like, and to put us into a place of absolute humility that we don't know much at all. But the goal of that is to put us into proper calibration so that we go, I don't know much. So I'm going to rely on something, on an intelligent love that's way bigger than me. Like, that's connected to all the people around, that's way closer than 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon, right? Like, this intelligent love knows how to get through to anyone on this planet, so to speak. And I'm literally in the middle of it right now, and so are you. So the reason why we don't sense this infinite love that we're literally swimming in is because we have this nervous system that has narrowed us down. Now, really quick. So just think about this, contemplate this. You come in, you're this infinite being. You're this infinite being, you come in and you decide, for the fun of it, to take on the drag of a human baby, okay? So basically, you're infinite, you're in the spirit, anything you think you create, things move fast, and then you decide, you know what, I'm gonna slow down my creation so I can slow down my ability to create, so I can refine my ability to create. So you take on the drag of a human body, an infant, and you make yourself powerless as an infant, and you put yourself to be in charge by flawed people all around you. So now you're a powerless baby with an incompetent nervous system, with flawed humans around you that's responsible for you for the first several years of your life, and your nervous system gets entrained to that. Powerless, flawed, limited, feeling like you can't do anything, right? And then we get older, and then we read all these spiritual books. Oh, we're far bigger than we ever, they tell us all this, the Christ within and all this good stuff, right? And we're like, yeah, I'm not feeling it. This Buddha within, or the Buddha within, or the Christ within, or whatever. We're like, yeah, right, Now, the reason for that is because our nervous systems especially the filter of our brain waves have been filtered in such a way that we have kind of pinched off that awareness. We've pinched off this magnanimous awareness within us, this gorgeousness within us. And we have kind of drank the Kool-Aid here, and now we're in a 5-sense 3D world. And then spirituality, we start to, explore it when our lives go haywire and we're looking for something new, right? So the whole point of why I'm bringing this up is because I'm wanting people to start understanding there's so much more to you, to us. And when you start to see yourself as this eternal conscious creator and living on both sides of the veil, what happens is we start to hold this world lightly. We start to become properly calibrated with the intelligent love, the divine, you call God. I like to call it intelligent love. And we become properly calibrated with intelligent love. And so what happens is we learn to get lighter and lighter, and your hearts get lighter and lighter, and you get happier and happier, even though life is sending you serious stuff, right? Serious challenges, serious things. But you remember, the difference is you start remembering. You start remembering, oh yeah, that's right. This challenge that's come my way is a challenge for me to stay sovereign in my own energy, sovereign in my own being, to remember who I am, to hold this world lightly, right? To wear it lightly. So, in order for us to start getting into this calibration, where you're living in the expansive awareness, literally the sea of love, what happens is, again, we get to glide through the challenges in life. So there are tricks, and I'm not going to go into them now, but throughout the year we're going to talk about them, because the idea is that, you know, we're kind of like fish swimming in the ocean, and we're thirsty, and we're feeling like we don't have any, we're looking for water, right? So we're fish looking for water in the ocean because we feel as though, you know, infinite love isn't anywhere, right? And yet, meanwhile, it's like permeating our cells and our being. But the challenge, what's happened, is the fact that we have all these densities in the energy field, right? And then we have these really narrow nervous system senses, right? But we can train. That's why my book is called Become a Consciousness Athlete, because we're going to train like athletes to be able to change the filter so that we can become aware of our eternal nature, so that we don't need a near-death experience to touch that healing energy. That energy is so profoundly healing that it can heal people in an instant. That's why so many people, when they come back from these near-death experiences and they've had a particularly mystical experience, and they're at death's door, like that's why they're dead, basically. They're at death's door. Either they've had cancer ravage their body, they were in a traumatic car accident or whatever, and so many of them, when they come back, if they've gone all the way where they've had this really profoundly mystical experience, they come back and their bodies heal quickly, right? And not only that, the doctors come in and go, oh, you may never walk again. They're like, oh, I'll be walking soon. Like, you know, like they know that they've come back with an opportunity, and their bodies follow them because this consciousness is so profoundly healing. So for this upcoming week, I encourage you to find some people on the internet that are sharing their near-death experience. Notice how you feel when you start listening to as you do listen. If you're in a particularly challenging, depressive situation and you're feeling really low, go watch some near-death experience things, and you'll notice that by the time you finish, like that thing that was wearing you down so much, you'll be like equally calibrated. You'll be like, I'm good, I got this, right? Because you're touching profound, infinite love. It's just amazing. And I know more and more people that we're living in it, we're waking up in it, we're just like savoring it, as if almost like getting addicted to this love. And I believe because of all the things that are happening now, it's closer to us than ever. And so I'm just passionate maybe for the next year to start a conversation, to have us all kind of start waking up and going, oh yeah, that's right, I remember, I'm eternal, this was the game we're playing together. Like infinite love and wounding causes us to wake up, and we're gonna use our wounding to wake up, okay? And then we can start living the dream. We can start remembering the magical mystery tour this 3D world was supposed to be, and not the shit show it's often turned into, okay? So there are ways to glide through all of this, even in the most difficult times. I've seen it in myself, I've seen it in others, and I'm just inviting all of us to start a conversation about remembering. All right, I'll see you next week. By the way, thanks everyone for the positive comments or the supportive comments. I know many of you have seen me do this for years, but it has been a little intimidating stepping out again, and I really wrestled with it tonight especially. And so I'm trying to make this commitment to myself to do this for a year, because what I noticed was, and I've been sharing with people, and I can't help it, my map of the world includes consciousness, and I've been finding that it offers people's different solutions that other people don't have. And so I'm realizing that it's important for all of us to know that we have this inheritance from the other side. And if we're not accepting our inheritance and knowing how to utilize it, then again, it's just money on the table. So I'm wanting to inspire us all to remember who we really are, and to allow that to start working for us instead of against us. All right, thank you so much. I hope to hear from many of you. Thanks again, thank you. Take care, bye-bye.